Oh, is it spooky, scary skeletons?
Yeah.
It usually is that. Yeah, okay, good.
Aren't you excited, Michael? It's Spooktober.
I'm always excited for Spooktober because it's, well, actually, I'm very scared by it. It terrifies me.
All right. Well, we're here once again, and yeah, normally we talk about movie news in these openings. So, relating it back to Spooktober, I tell you who's having a real bad Spooktober, or a scary October, however you want to say it. Warner Brothers, because Joker, Full Adieu, has bombed at the box office, hasn't it?
Yes, I actually heard about this. I think it's done worse than Madam Web, I believe I'm right in saying. That's a comparison point I heard someone make. I assume accurately so.
Well, yeah, let us get on to Spooktober then. Our first out of 2 movies we're doing. It's a very limited Spooktober this year.
More like a Tooktober. Or Spooktuber. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke. And this week we are celebrating the 40-year anniversary of the release of the movie Gremlins by looking at Gremlins. And of course we also, as already indicated or explicitly stated, are celebrating Spooktober by looking at a movie about scary Gremlins. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Gremlins?
Yeah, certainly, Michael. So Gremlins is a 1984 American fantasy comedy horror film directed
Good.
by...
I'm glad you got there eventually with the horror.
Yes, directed by Joe Dante. Yeah, that's the thing. It is kind of... It's not scary. Well, we'll get into it, whether it's scary. But obviously it is, a horror movie of sorts. So we can do it in October.
Yes.
It's okay. It passes,
Yes.
It's not like, I don't know, The Shining. But it's, it's still... Yeah, horror movies come in different shapes and sizes. So, yeah. It's written... Oh, do you know who it's written by?
Steven Spielberg is in the credits. I don't know if he wrote it.
No.
Okay, is it? I assume it has to be in some way interesting, but I can't think what would make it interesting. Like, I don't know, John Landis. He was in the 80s.
Chris Columbus.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. He does movies.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, he did my other favorite horror movie, Home Alone.
Yeah, I'm sure it was produced by Steven Spielberg.
Yes.
It doesn't say on Wikipedia, but he is involved in some way. By the way, Spielberg suggested that the Motion Picture Association of America alter its rating system, which it did within 2 months of the film's release, creating a new PG-13 rating. That's the amount of pull Spielberg had.
Yeah, some might say he controls Hollywood.
He does, yes. in a non-racist way.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Yeah, so that PG-13 rating, which is of course, I think, like the vast majority of movies that are, big market movies have that rating, and that was created because of this movie because. It wasn't going to be that successful with its original rating, which was probably like I don't know what they have in America, like a 15 maybe.
Well, no, because I feel like, maybe I'm crazy, but I guess prior to that point, because I think it goes PG-13 and straight up to R, which I think is really stupid. But I think my understanding is their actual system is that an R basically means that anyone can see it, but they have to be with a parent. Whereas there's NC-17, which means even if you've got a parent, you can't do it.
You mean anyone can see it with a parent if they are, of course, under 18 or 17 rather.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, if you're like 20, you don't have to.
Yes. Good job there. So the movie stars Zach Galligan, Phoebe Cates, Hoyt Axton, Polly Holliday, and Francis Lee McCain. It was released on June the 8th, 1984. Well, it's its 40th anniversary, of course. It's really weird because, it's a horror movie, so maybe it would be released in October. Nope. Okay, well, it is also a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
Was it released in December? No, it was released in the middle of summer. So great job there. But whatever, it doesn't really matter to us anyway. So, Michael, can you guess what the budget was for Gremlins?
No. Obviously, I don't know how much puppets cost. What was the going rate for puppets back then? I'm going to say like 10 million. That might be insanely high, but 10 million.
No. Often you think your guesses are too high.
And they're too low.
You don't go high enough. But yeah, you got that one pretty close because it's 11 million.
Lovely.
Yeah, it was about as much as you'd expect it to cost. But what about the box office, Michael? How much did the Steven Spielberg-backed Gremlins make?
Well, okay, you're saying Steven Spielberg backed, and obviously we've already established he has a lot of pull, a lot of control, a lot of influence. So this is making me think you're trying to coax me to say pretty high. I think I would have guessed quite high anyway, because I'm sure, but I don't know how high is. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna go over 100 million. I'm just like talking you through, but I feel like I don't think this made. I'm gonna say this made 150 million. I don't know.
Wow, what did I say before?
I always think I'm guessing high, and I guess under.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised to hear I guessed under, but I don't know how much. Like, how much was I under? Was it embarrassing?
The box office was 212 million. So yeah, it was quite a bit higher than your guess. Again, this movie was a great success. So Michael, can you tell me whether you liked Gremlins?
So I would say I just about liked this movie. I think obviously it's very silly, like it's very light-hearted, I suppose. It's not what you call high stakes, not exactly exciting. I think it's reasonably charming, but there's nothing about it that wows me. But I think there's enough there, I'd say, just about on balance. Yeah, I do like it.
Yeah, I like elements of this movie. I think it's got some good ideas. The attention paid to the Gremlins is its biggest asset in terms of their design and what they actually do in the movie, which is quite fun. However, the rest of the movie is quite bad, honestly. I'm surprised at how bad this was. I'm surprised at how slow this was. This was a really slow-paced movie, which I didn't expect before watching it. And it's not that exciting.
It's also longer than it needs to. Well, it's 1:46. They could have, they could have trimmed some stuff.
Oh, absolutely. They could have trimmed 10 minutes off it easily and made it a bit faster.
And that would have still been comfortably feature length.
Yeah, and I just think a lot of the other elements of the movie, like the characters, the relationship that some of the characters have, just what happens at the end, it's just quite poor. And I was surprised at how bad it was. But then again, the Gremlins are really good. So that's...
Yeah, see, I don't have quite as many, but I don't have quite as many overt criticisms as you, but I would agree with you that, I was surprised at how bored I was, especially towards the end. The beginning, that was fine.
So you agree with me?
I would agree with you. I don't necessarily know, for me, I'm not sure if, I didn't come away from thinking, I didn't like the character dynamics. No, I didn't like the character dynamic stuff. I don't know if I agree. But I was just it just wasn't, there wasn't that much going on.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's part of it, isn't it? There's the character dynamics being undercooked, being underdeveloped, meaning there's not that much going on. We have... this issue of, this movie actually doesn't have that much to it apart from the Gremlins, which are really good. But apart from that, it falls flat. And
that's a good rhyme.
Yeah. Well, the major thing in the movie is Gremlins. So as long as you get that right, you can see why this movie was successful. And again, audiences back in the day were used to movies which just were slower and less competently made and worse. Again, there's a lot of elements in this movie where I'm just what are you, how was that? How are we not in a first draft here? How has that not been enhanced or developed? Even if it was enhanced or developed in a bad way, you'd expect that, or at least a modern movie would do that. But again, it's the same issue with these movies that come out 40 years ago. But whatever, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. So let's get onto the nitpicks. How many do you have, Michael?
Well, I actually have three lit picks, and three nitpicks and two lit picks.
Okay, well, I guess you should go first.
So, I'm going to do them in a slightly alternating order, because my first kind of a nitpick is that the Mogwai comes with a terrible curse, but then the lit pick is that it comes with a free frozen yogurt, which I call Frogut, and that's good. The Frogut is also cursed, and I think that's kind of bad. That's a nitpick. But you get your choice of topping, and that's good. Now, the only final nitpick I have, and like I said, it didn't really affect my opinion of the film, it's just that the toppings contain potassium benzoate, and I thought that was kind of bad.
Okay, fair enough. That's a good one. So my nitpick, I have two, I didn't say actually, but my two nitpicks. One of them is a general nitpick which has been commented on, and I think Gremlins 2 kind of made fun of people who made a serious point out of this. Firstly, how do these Mogwai stay alive if they can't drink? I believe that all organisms kind of need to, drink something somewhat, and they probably die if they can't get any water. And then my other nitpick is, what about the time zones, Michael? Because obviously,
naturalistically, this makes no sense, because how would they even know what time it is? Because time is a human construct.
Yeah, exactly. So it's midnight, and I'm like, well, what about if you go from the East Coast, because I assume it's East Coast, maybe it's not, to Central Time, and now it's only 11:30 instead of 12:30. Can you feed the Mogwai now?
Yeah, I feel like if they wanted to make it make sense, it should have been midnight. It's like a good baseline of saying you shouldn't feed it after midnight, but it's not like a hard and fast thing. Really what they mean is, if you feed it at 2 a.m, that's an issue, but because you're not going to know exactly when it's 2 a.m, just to play it safe, you shouldn't feed them before midnight. That's how they could have fixed it.
Well, I'm not really sure that would have fixed it.
They could have fixed the movie.
No, well, again, it's a bullshit nitpick that
they could have made it an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, that nobody really cares about, and nobody really should care about. But of course, it's an issue that's been brought up. But yeah, that's why it's just a nitpick. I said those were my two nitpicks. That was only one of my nitpicks, split into kind of two.
I see.
Complaints. My second nitpick is right. So his dad, he is a failed inventor, Billy Peltzer's dad, and apparently he's at this invention conference, which for some fucking reason is taking place on Christmas Eve, which is just the worst time for a convention.
That's a good point, Luke. I want it on record. I 100% support you in having come up with that as a genuine issue.
Yes, thank you. Again, he needs to be out of town, but just don't send him to a fucking convention or a conference or whatever on Christmas Eve.
They should just have had this in the same cinematic universe, even though it came out before then, of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yeah,
the dad's Steve Martin, and he's not able to get back to Christmas.
Okay, before we get into the plot, well, do you know where the term Gremlins actually comes from, Michael?
Oh, I don't know. Is it anti-Semitic?
Why?
I don't know.
Why would it be anti-Semitic?
I just thought partially because some people might say that let's say, for example, authors of certain famous wizarding books might liken Jewish people to goblins, and goblins are kind of similar to gremlins. So that's kind of my first thought.
Actually, the people that came up with the term gremlins were against the anti-Semites.
Really?
Yeah. So the notion of gremlins was first conceived during the 1920s when mechanical failures in RAF aircraft were jokingly blamed on the small monsters. The term gremlins also entered the popular culture as children's author and RAF pilot Roald Dahl published a book called The Gremlins in 1943, based on the mischievous creatures. So yeah, RAF pilots used to complain about, why is my plane not working? It's because of these gremlins, while they were fighting the Nazis. Some good old British humour there. Which we love to see.
But later on, it pivoted into Holocaust denial when they said that actually it was the Gremlins who put the Cyclone B in the showers.
What?
I'm just saying I'm saying they set it up for a Gremlin themed Holocaust prequel.
Yeah, I'm sure that'd do well on the box office. But yeah, I find that interesting because there is a character that talks about gremlins in his foreign truck. If you remember that. And it's really weird how he brings that up out of nowhere when he doesn't even know that there are gremlins in his town. And yeah, obviously that character is there because...
Yeah, because he's an RAF pilot undercover.
Yeah, because... Well, yeah, cause I don't think the movie really needed to explain where the term gremlins originates from, but they're clearly trying to do that with this character. But yeah, I just found that kind of interesting. So let's get on to the plot or the premise. So the story follows a young man, Billy Peltzer, who receives a strange creature as a pet, which then spawns other creatures that transform into aggressive imp-like monsters. See, they're closer to imps, really, than goblins, aren't they?
Yeah, you know what, Luke? I'm embarrassed to admit it's not that bad, actually. For a minute, when you said imp-like, I thought you were completely butchering pronouncing impolite. I was like, does Luke know how to talk? But yeah, you are right. They are imp-like.
Yeah, what's Dobby in Harry Potter?
He's a house elf.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah, not an elf, like a house elf. So,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's not one of those elves which gets freedom, He's a house elf. Okay.
He's not one of those elves that's out in the field.
No.
He's a house elf.
Yeah, well, those elves are also...
Oh, yeah, you're right.
They'd probably also look like Dobby, you know. They'd probably be under worse conditions than Dobby, honestly. But yeah, so they're imps, or imp-like monsters that wreak havoc, on Billy's town during Christmas Eve. Yeah, you got these fun scenarios with these creatures. That's what this movie is built on. That's the foundation. And I enjoy those scenes. I think those scenes are really good. It's just everything else, which is, yeah, like I said, not that good. And obviously you mix the comedy of the Gremlins with the horror, with some of the stuff that they do. You know, it's not that serious, obviously. There's no real scary moments. But yeah, I just feel like combining the comedy with the horror, it's a very 80s thing, or 1980s thing to do. Because obviously we recently, a few months ago, reviewed another movie from 1984, didn't we?
Yeah, did you bitch about that too?
What do you mean, did I bitch about it?
Well, I remember there was like a recent movie where you were like just talking about how people in the past just straight up didn't know how to make movies. You're just like...
Well, I say that every time.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. The recent movie from 1984,
it was, so we reviewed 16 Candles.
Oh, yeah.
And Revenge of the Nerds. And I think it was 16 Candles. That was the movie where I was like, you know, it's just this mishmash of different like genres like slammed together to make this movie. And it could have only been made in the 1980s. And, you know, I feel like that's the case with Gremlins as well. You know, only this kind of movie could be made in the 1980s, where it combines these, you know, I guess elements which are polar opposites, but smacks them together in this movie. And it kind of works with this movie. So there you go, you know. I mean, I say it kind of works. It's not really a horror movie, is it? You know,
no.
It's mainly a comedy movie, and the horror is kind of played for jokes a lot of the time.
Yeah, well, I was gonna. So I have a little bit of a bitch, you know, seeing as you love to bitch so much. Because we were going to talk about, and I don't know whether I'm jumping the gun here, but you said we're going to talk about the Christmas thing quite early on, and I'm thinking it seems like you're kind of we're heading towards that. Yeah. So basically, I mean, I just wanted to say like I really don't like this like half Christmas thing nonsense that, I mean, it existed in the 80s. I mean, you had Die Hard, and it's kind of like these movies that like they hint at being Christmassy, or in this case, I mean, you know, you could say it's very Christmassy. I mean, it's set at Christmas, they're like singing Christmas carols, blah blah blah, but it's like, it's obviously not, it's not like an appropriate movie to watch at Christmas, because Christmas movies are supposed to be like fun, family friendly. And I know like you could say, well, this is, but you know, it's still about like people getting injured, and it's about like horrible, I mean, a guy does die. There's like these, so I don't like that. I feel like unless it's absolutely necessary, like for example that Krampus movie. Okay, well that's literally about like all the supernatural Christmas special, where it's about a pagan god who's killing people because he's mad that people are celebrating Christmas instead of, you know, the ancient pagan holidays. Like that's fine because it needs to be set at Christmas. But when it's not very plot relevant, I feel like leaning into this Christmas thing, it just annoys me, because I'm like, well, I guess I should be. But then like hearing that they released it in June, that just annoys me even more. And I guess I could say it's kind of a nitpick, it doesn't actually massively impact my opinion of the film. But like, you know, tonally, you know, being a bit tonally confused, that kind of counts against this movie. You know, I'd rather it pick something and kind of stuck to it a bit more. Like, it can be a fun, goofy horror movie. There's lots of fun, goofy horror movies. But to throw in the Christmas thing, I'm not going to be watching this at Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's in there because Billy needs a present, although he could have just got it for his birthday. The whole element of, it's madness on the one like night you don't want madness, you know. It's Christmas Eve, you know, it's meant to be, you know, a nice, happy time, and then you get these gremlins ruining it, because if it was, you know, if it was a random like October,
it could be 4th of July or something, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe
like another holiday. Yeah, you know, actually, I had another complaint about Christmas. See, this could have been a nitpick, because it's very related to a nitpick you said. But for me, like it annoyed me slightly more than the nitpick, and it's related to the water thing. I would say that snow pretty much turns into water on impact. Like if I touch some snow, I'm going to immediately have water in my hand. And I was just thinking like these gremlins are walking around in snow. And snow is basically only a stone's throw away from water.
It gets colder in America.
It could be like, yeah, pretty dry snow. Okay, yeah, I'm willing to accept that. But yeah, I was just thinking like, you know.
Yeah, no, not a lot of moisture in the air, you know. Yeah. So I do want to read, by the way, the very legal description.
We love these.
The description from the website I watched this movie on. And it's a very legal website, of course. But yeah, do you want to hear it?
Yes, I would actually.
Okay, because thank God you said yes. Because if you said no, we'd be in trouble, right?
Yeah.
I had this.
You wouldn't know what to do. You'd just be so sad.
Yeah. So this is the description from that legal website that I used to watch this movie. So Gremlins. Miniature green monsters tear through the small town of Kingston Falls. Hijinks ensue as a mild-mannered bank teller releases these hideous loonies after gaining a new pet and violating 2 of the 3 simple rules. No water, brackets, violated. No food after midnight, brackets, violated. And no bright light, which is honestly also violated.
Yeah, but he violates that on purpose. Well, I know, to be fair, he violates by accident sometimes too, yeah.
Hilarious mayhem and destruction in a town straight out of Norman Rockwell.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the sentence.
Okay, yeah. I wonder who wrote that, but yeah. I like how it implies that when it says this mild-mannered guy unleashed them, it makes it sound like he's a villain.
Yeah. So, when your washing machine blows up or your TV goes on the fritz, before you call the repairman, turn on all the lights and look under all the beds, because you never can tell. There just might be a gremlin in your house. Which is actually the line from the dad at the end of the movie.
Yeah, they say at the end, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing, yeah. Again, that doesn't really jive with what we've seen in the movie. It's like, these gremlins, they mess up your TV. No, they actually go on murderous rampages. That's what actually happens when you unleash a gremlin,
They're also not very subtle. It's not like, oh man, I think I might have gremlins.
Yeah. They don't hide from you. They're not under the bed. They're, fucking trying to stab you with a knife or shoot you with a gun. That's what these gremlins are doing. Again, it's interesting how the original conceit of what gremlins are and then what it got turned into in this movie, but they still tried, particularly with that ending line, to keep this myth about what gremlins actually are, even though the movie completely departs from that myth by making them a lot more aggressive and murderous and violent and horrible to deal with than just, these little gremlins are making your TV go on the fritz. Yeah, it's not quite that, is it?
No.
Yeah. So Gremlins, it was produced at a time when combining horror and comedy was becoming increasingly popular. According to Professor Carroll, what other movie actually did this in 1984?
I don't know, was it Nightmare on Elm Street?
Nope.
Because that was kind of a bit comedic.
Well, I wouldn't say it was really comedic.
It was kind of just goofy, I guess. Okay. So would you say I've got to go more goofy?
Yeah.
Oh, Ghostbusters.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah,
Ghostbusters, which was, I can't really believe this. It was released the same weekend as Gremlins. So I don't know how that worked. Was it a Barbie Oppenheimer situation?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to see. Well, that's the thing. They're 2 very similar movies in that regard. They're comedy/horror movies. So yeah, June 1984. That was when that kind of genre peaked. And the comic strip The Far Side also followed this trend. Never heard of that. Don't know about it.
I think I have heard of it. I don't know anything about it.
Carroll argued that there was now a new genre emphasizing sudden shifts between humorous and horrific scenes, drawing laughs with plot elements that have been traditionally used to scare. Yeah, maybe because audiences were getting too used to horror movies. There'd been, of course, a spate of, I guess, nowadays classic horror movies released in the 70s and early 80s. And it's like, well, we don't really, audiences are past that, so why don't we combine, humor with comedy? Humor with horror. There we go.
Yes.
And that can work because, I think obviously, movies come in all, different shapes and sizes, but in general, I'd say there are 2 distinctions from your average movie, which is a specific type of movie which has a specific genre which just separates it from other normal movies, and those 2 types of movies are comedy movies and also horror movies, because you go specifically to see these movies either to be scared or to laugh, rather than just experience a movie as a whole.
You know what you're getting into.
What?
Well, I mean, you know that the specific reason you're going there. It's not there's no nebulousness to what it would take for that movie to be good.
Yes,
is what I'm saying.
That's a good way to define it. Yes, I like that. So so again, you combine these 2 elements of horror and comedy. Yeah, it doesn't maybe make sense on the surface, but then you think about these 2 kind of movie genres are unique in that way. So let's combine them together to create, I guess, just an entertaining movie, which is what this seeks to do. And I think it kind of fails at that, honestly, but I can see, I think somebody, a critic, maybe it was Gene Siskel, said this movie just tries to entertain you, which, again, if you're combining these 2 elements of comedy and horror, that would be, I guess, your goal. That's what would be trying to do. Again, I don't think it succeeds, but yeah, you can clearly see why there is some logic in combining these two genres, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think also like they're kind of, I don't know, yeah, like trashy. I don't know if that's like I guess maybe visceral. Like, like it's very simple. You laugh, you're scared. They're kind of almost involuntary reactions, right? Like, if a movie makes you laugh, you're just like, ah. If a movie makes you scream, you go, ah. So yeah.
Again, it is mainly comedy, and I guess if you're mixing the genres, like the comedy is going to overwhelm the horror, because I think with the horror you need to like set a consistent tone throughout. For it to be like scary.
For my preference, I honestly I would rather this movie was more scary. Because I mean, obviously we've kind of both said you maybe a bit more forcefully, like there wasn't that much going on in this movie, and like when the bloody guy gets I'm kind of jumping ahead, but fuck it, I don't know. I don't want to jump ahead, but I was thinking about the teacher thing. Maybe I should mention it when we actually get to what happens to him. But I was thinking like that was an opportunity where I felt like they could have had it be a bit more gory and a bit more exciting.
Yeah.
In a way I would have appreciated.
Well, I'm going to talk about the darkness later on in the movie.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
The producers or the writers trying to make it darker than it actually ended up being. And again, maybe if that was the case, then the contradictions between the comedy and the horror would have been too stark, and it wouldn't have worked. But let's go through the plot first. Well, firstly, the story was conceived by Chris Columbus, and he wrote the screenplay as a spec script to show potential employers that he had writing abilities. The story was not actually intended to be filmed until Steven Spielberg took an interest in turning it into a film. As Spielberg explained, it's one of the most original things I've come across in many years, which is why I bought it. So there you go. And I just love this. This was how it was back in the day, I've got an idea, just trying to prove that I can write. Oh, it gets turned into a multi-million-dollar movie that grosses $200 million with Steven Spielberg financing it,
This is how boomers got jobs.
Yeah, literally, yeah. Oh, wow. What a time that was. Yeah, let's get into what happens in the movie now. So, struggling inventor Randall Peltzer visits a Chinatown antique store, hoping to find a Christmas present for his son Billy. I don't know, does his son like Chinese stuff? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure, yeah. It also seems like a kind of expensive place, but whatever.
Yeah, and I thought his son would be like 10, when he gets him like a pet. It's like, oh yeah, I want this something for my son. He's not like a fully grown like adult who's like about 20. But whatever. Randall finds a small furry creature called a mogwai. And do you know what that is in Cantonese?
Oh, no.
Well, come on.
Shockingly. I don't know,
guess.
Does it mean like rat or something?
Wow.
Like some kind of similar
That's harsh.
creature?
Rat? These aren't.
I'm sorry, I mean.
Yeah, these aren't rats. No, it's devil.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. What is mogwai in Cantonese? It's devil.
Capitalist.
Well, of course, you know where Canton.
Oh yeah, like that's actually, I guess, Hong Kong.
Yes, Hong Kong, which of course is the one capitalist place in China.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I apologize.
Yeah. The owner. Do you know what the owner is called, by the way?
No.
It's Mr. Wing, which.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of from the J.K. Rowling school of naming.
Yeah, right. Mr. Wing. I mean, yeah. Mr. Ching would be worse. I think it's like the ch sound really adds an extra.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Cho Chang.
Yeah. Oh, lovely.
So this guy, Mr. Wing, refuses to sell it to Randall, but his grandson secretly does. Was that short round, by the way? No, it wasn't. No. That's just me being racist.
Yeah, you're racist. Go think about what you did.
Warning Randall to remember 3 important rules concerning the mogwai. Do not expose the creature to light, especially sunlight, which will kill it. Do not let it come into contact with water. And above all, do not never feed it after midnight. Yeah, I like those rules. That's a very good thing to do in these horror movies. Establish simple rules and follow them in the plot. Wouldn't you say that's correct? Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree, and I would pretty much agree with exactly how you phrased it. Like constraints, I guess that's the one word I'll add.
Yeah. So in Randall's hometown of Kingston Falls, Billy works at the local bank. This is Billy Peltzer, of course, but fears that his dog Barney will be put down by widowed miser Mrs. Deagle. Yeah. Do you know? Obviously, you've you know what Deagle means in terms of like guns.
No, I don't actually.
So
no,
it's short.
Retarded.
It's shorthand for Desert Eagle.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes
Deagle,
sense.
Yeah, and again, Billy Peltzer. Well, we'll talk about him now. again, he's such a 1980s like protagonist. You know,
it sounds like a 1980s name.
yeah, just a down on his luck kid who has a kind heart, but he just needs that bit of luck. His car doesn't start. He cares about his dog. He has dreams of being a comic book artist, I guess. But yeah, he's your typical hero. Although like he doesn't really have to prove anything or overcome anything. And I think again that's another part of the his character that could have been added. Yeah. But he, in terms of like the basics of what a 1980s protagonist is, this is Billy Peltzer, right? It's a good blueprint to start with, at least,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think he's very. I mean, like I say, he's very generic. There's not really much to him. Blank slate is what they would call him.
So Billy's father returns home and gives him the Mogwai, now named Gizmo, as a pet, as well as explaining the 3 rules to him. Gizmo is initially friendly and docile. Yeah, does nobody question what species this thing is, by the way? Just nobody cares, It's like this...
Yeah, like there's no like concern about like rabies or anything.
Well, I wasn't going to say that. It's like a mystical creature which has never before been seen.
Yeah.
And just nobody cares. It's just, here's the new pet. It's like a dog. And yeah, what I was thinking as well, this must have been a merchandising dream. As soon as I saw Gizmo as he is, I just imagined, in a non-racist way, the dollar signs that Spielberg must have seen. And again, the name is perfect, right? Gizmo, That's such a great name for this creature. So, I don't know, did you think... I'm going to read a bit about this in a sec. Did you think, this must have been a merchandising...
I'm absolutely on the same page as you there.
Yeah. So with the cuteness of the character Gizmo, because he is cute, right? He's very cute. Yeah. Gremlins became the center of considerable merchandising. Wow, what a shock.
That is shocking.
Both Gizmo and the Gremlins were mass-produced as action figures, and Topps printed trading cards based upon the film, which I don't know how they did that, but fair play to them. But yeah, would you have liked a Gizmo as a kid, Michael?
That's a tough one. I think I would have appreciated it. Yeah, I think I would have been pretty grateful actually for the little cute guy. Maybe I would have been a bit terrified of it, but that's what you come to expect with these like strange foreign toys.
No, but Gizmo is a Mogwai. He's not a gremlin. Okay, so there's a
I'm with you there. That makes sense. I mean he is cute.
Yeah, he is cute. So Billy's friend Pete spills water on Gizmo. This is the one thing we didn't want to happen.
Yes.
Yeah. 5 more Mogwai spawn from him, a more mischievous sort, led by the aggressive Stripe. That's his name because he's got a stripe on his head. It's like Scar from The Lion King. You'd assume the Mogwai would turn into what's he called? Fucking Gizmo would turn into a gremlin, but instead he just spawns other Mogwai who are again more mischievous. But I'm not sure of the process. It's like, so once Mogwai spawn, like you got these like 5 or so Mogwai, they want to become gremlins. Is that it?
Yeah. So I'm with you on like not really being clear on like some of their motivations. The other thing I was thinking about in terms of motivations is like the fact that presumably they seem to want to actively go to like water so they can multiply. But I'm like, well, if that's their goal, they can do that pretty easily.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you on a lot of it not really being very clear.
Yeah. By the way, instead of Stripe being a Mogwai who becomes a gremlin, there was originally no Mogwai named Stripe. Rather, Gizmo was supposed to transform into Stripe the gremlin. But who overruled that, Michael?
Steven Spielberg.
Why did he do that?
Because he wanted Gizmo to stay cute.
Yes.
So yeah, I was going to say, I actually think it was a really smart move that I would say even appreciated, that they kept Gizmo as like a good gremlin. I thought it was like very clever of them.
Mogwai.
Yeah, sorry, a good Mogwai. Because yeah, obviously, you need one of them to be cute so that we can so you don't lose that cuteness factor. Well done there, Mr. Spielberg.
And why is the cuteness factor important?
Because of the Benjamins, baby.
Yeah, see, again, it says on Wikipedia, Spielberg thought the audience would want Gizmo to be present throughout the film. But why is that? Because, he's a cute character, and if he turns into a nasty gremlin, maybe parents won't buy it for their kids now, I don't know. I'm being cynical here, but I think that.
I mean, I'm with you there.
Yeah, that was perhaps part of the reason. Back at home, Stripe and his fellow Mogwai trick Billy into feeding them after midnight by severing the power cord on his alarm clock. I like this tactic from the Gremlins. It makes sense, like it's sneaky, and I was worried that Billy was going to do some dumb shit and basically cause all this, all the chaos by himself. But yeah, it's the Gremlins or the Mogwai being, because they're still Mogwai even though they're acting like Gremlins, so it's a bit weird. But yeah, whatever. It makes sense that they are being sneaky, and yeah, I don't know. I thought that was better than what it was going to be. Like I thought Billy would just be like, oh yeah, here's some fucking part of my sandwich. Oh shit, what have I done? It's past midnight. Oh no. So that didn't happen, and I'm happy about that. What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm with you there, because I was kind of thinking, like, I was a bit surprised that he just tells them, like, the dad tells them the rules right away, because I was thinking it's just going to be, like, literally just a kind of more stupid situation where, like, they basically just do it without it really being given much forethought at all. And the answer is no, they do actually kind of, like the reason why it happens is, like you say, not just because they're idiots, which is good.
So I'm going to talk about the practical effects now, because there's quite a few practical effects in this movie, isn't there? So an earlier attempt to use, what animal, Michael, I'm going to ask you, to interpret the Gremlins was abandoned because these animals panicked when they were made to wear a gremlin head. What animal do you think?
Monkeys?
Yeah, well done, monkeys. So that would have been very weird, right?
I wouldn't have liked that.
Puppets and marionettes were used instead. The small rubber puppets were designed by Chris Wallace, and the Gizmo puppets were quite frustrating because they were smaller and broke down more. While Wallace recommended making the Mogwai larger to make their creation and functioning easier for the special effects team, the director Dante insisted on keeping their size small to enhance the cuteness of the creatures and enhance those Benjamins. Am I right?
Well, yeah. And it does, to be fair, it does make them cuter.
Yeah. Consequently, to satisfy the crew, a scene was included in which the Gremlins hang Gizmo on a wall and throw darts at him. So that was because the crew hated him. So they had. I see. Yeah. So they had that scene, when he's getting pelted with darts. This was included on a list that the crew created, known to them as the horrible things to do to Gizmo list. Which I find cute. Do you find funny? I like that.
I like that. Yeah. I like when people have their anger.
What?
And they got like their anger against, like, when you hear like this kind of behind the scenes, like I guess I'm just gonna say beef that people have, and then you like, you get to feel like in a weird way, even though I guess it's technically not fun, it feels like they were having fun while they're making it if they're doing things like that.
Yeah. So yeah, I just like that. That's the origin for it. Other effects required large Mogwai faces and ears to be produced for close-ups, as the puppets were less capable of conveying emotion. Consequently, large props simulating food were needed for the close-ups in the scene in which the Mogwai feast after midnight. So that
I was thinking that I bet they have different sizes of props because they've got to do different things with the Mogwai.
Yeah. So again, I think it's all that stuff is fascinating, and I think it looks really good on screen, which again is one of the main selling points of the movie, how good the Gremlins look and the fun stuff they get up to, and the Mogwai of course as well. So yeah, I think they really. I was watching it. I was like, wow, they're doing a really good job here, portraying the Mogwai and then later the Gremlins with these close-ups. And yeah, I again the Gremlins just look great. I think they've done a really good job. I know, of course, Red Letter Media. They
own one, don't they?
Yeah, they own one, and they really like this movie, and I think it's because of the practical effects. And like you said, they have bought a Gremlin, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we should buy a Gremlin.
Yeah, well, we should. Did you also think that the Gremlins looked really good?
Yeah. I think they looked adorable, and
the Gremlins.
The Mogwai look. Oh god, I don't recognize this distinction. Yeah, when they were Gremlins, they definitely did have the creepiness factor going on. When they were Mogwai, they looked adorable. Yeah, I think it was a good design, really.
Yeah.
Like they were kind of like bats.
Yeah, no, the design was great. Really, really good. So, of course, the Mogwai then form cocoons, which soon hatch, emerging as destructive monsters called Gremlins that torture Gizmo. Yeah.
I do want to say, by the way, sorry. I think it's like really stupid that when they enter this like like they turn into eggs. There's like no effort at all to like contain them or anything like that. Like they're not like, because they know that they've just done a bad thing, and it's kind of like the fact that you get a warning of, oh wait, they turn into eggs first. It's like this is your prime opportunity to not be an idiot, and just like put a cage around them or something. At least give yourself a fighting chance to, because you've done something that you're not supposed to do.
Yeah,
but yeah,
no, I agree. I agree absolutely. That's a good point. Yeah, and so obviously the gremlins then spawn because the characters are quite stupid and don't kill it because after being warned.
Yeah.
And they attack Billy's mother Lynn, while of course Hanson is murdered by his gremlin, and that's one of the parts of the movie, like you said, Michael, which was the most horror-esque part.
Yes, I wish it would have been more so. So basically, like, my beef is like they're talking about, like, there's this video playing in the background about like your heart and how much blood your heart pumps. And I was like thinking to myself, like, I feel like this scene should just be a little bit more gory. Like we should just see, like, not gore, but like we should see like blood. Which obviously I know that like they didn't do that because then but like it was just like with that line of like your heart pumps a lot of blood, and like they were mentioning blood. And I guess you'd say, well, it was a good way to communicate the idea of blood without actually showing it. But I was like, I just wanted them to bring it home just to get that extra like scare factor.
Yeah, you felt like they were setting up something more gory, but then didn't follow through on it, which is disappointing. Billy's mother, by the way, she goes off. She absolutely goes off. She's on a kill streak with these gremlins.
Yes.
Yeah. I like how she kills all the gremlins in different ways. But I don't know why she just wouldn't leave the house. That was confusing to me. You just yeah. I mean, that's what you do, right? If you saw all these crazy monsters in your house, you just leave.
Honestly, I would leave even if I just had the vaguest sense of there being scary monsters. I'd be like, I have like a slight fear. I'm getting out of here.
Yeah, and I'm sure from the recesses of my memory that Red Letter Media have pointed this out, but in that scene where Billy's mother is attacking the gremlins, you can see, and I saw it watching the movie, so I'm not just, copying what I think Red Letter Media said. I did see the puppet strings on the gremlins, and they're actually quite noticeable, but I'm guessing because you never notice anything, you didn't see that, right?
No. I always get too lost in the story.
No, you didn't see that, yeah. But,
which I'm also not paying attention to.
Yeah, but they are incredibly noticeable, unfortunately, in one shot. So yeah, that's and I'm sure Red Letter Media have pointed that out. I think I remember them doing that, but yeah, it's quite bad, honestly. That's poor. But in general, you don't really see the strings of the puppet. So yeah, that one was a big blunder. But yeah, I want to talk a bit about where we're at in the movie right now, because I put it's a really slow build up. Well, the whole movie is slow paced, honestly. So yeah, that's not a surprise. But yeah, I'm fine with the Gremlins get into the movie at about 45 minutes in, which is now where we're at in the movie, and I'm fine with it taking so long. I just wish more shit happened, honestly. And yeah, the second half is very different to the first half in terms of it's darker for sure, and the Gremlins cause more mayhem. But I do like the fact that it gets we get to the stage and things get turned up a notch. And, the relative peace we've had so far, and it just goes from 0 to not quite 100, but 82. You know what I mean?
Yeah. See, it's kind of interesting because a lot of horror movies, and I kind of, I'd say bad horror movies, but I don't necessarily mean bad horror movies in a kind of terrible way. But they often have a thing, which I noticed when I got into the habit of watching a few kind of classic horror movies that aren't really, let's say, taking the art form to new places. Like a lot of the time, the first 45 minutes you can just skip if you're in it for the horror. And even though this movie obviously is not horror forward, it still, I think, kind of has that same format of basically things only really kick off after 40-45 minutes. So in that sense, it's it's very much like a horror.
Yeah, that's true. They have that blueprint still in place. So but yeah, basically watching the first half, like you said, there's a lack of horror, and I was wondering how some of the ideas that actually didn't make it into the movie could have been how these ideas were thought of in the first place, because these ideas were so dark. And I'm watching the first half of the movie, and I'm like, there is no way that these ideas would fit into the movie that I'm seeing. But then after 45 minutes, you can kind of see it, because the Gremlins are quite evil, and we're going to talk about how dark this movie could have been, Michael. And you said I'm
quite excited for this.
Yeah, you wanted it to be darker, right?
Yeah. So
yeah, again, I'm not sure if these plot ideas would have made the movie too dark, and again, the contradictions would have been too big between the comedy and the horror. But it would have made it, I guess, more interesting. So the first version of the draft was much darker than the final film. Various scenes were cut, including one which portrayed Billy's mother dying in her struggle with the Gremlins.
Oh wow!
With her head thrown down the stairs when Billy arrives.
Oh wow! Yeah, okay, that's pretty dark.
Yeah. So again, it's a lot darker. That would be going from 0 to 100.
Yes.
Dante later explained the scene made the film darker than the filmmakers wanted. Yes, indeed. I don't think it would have been. Again, okay, I'll ask you. Do you think that would have worked more than? I'm not sure worked or. Would you have liked to have seen this in the movie compared to what we did see? I
don't think so. See, what I think you could have had a character who gets decapitated and their head thrown downstairs, and I would be like, okay, like that's still within the spirit of like fun can be horror. That's obviously not appropriate for children, but like I would still think it's totally fine. The issue is with it being his mother, that's much more like depressing. So I think in terms of like this movie being dark, maybe I shouldn't have said dark because what I really mean is like kind of horrific, but in a way that's still kind of goofy and fun. So yeah, I don't think that would have worked.
Well, you say it's not appropriate for children. This movie was aimed at children.
Yeah, so yes, yeah. With that in mind,
so with that in mind, it would not be... Again, you can see why they didn't want anybody's head being chopped off in the movie.
Yeah. But like as someone who's not a child, I would have liked someone's head got chopped off.
So there was also a scene where the Gremlins ate Billy's dog, which again is quite dark. I was wondering why they just send him off for like the second half of the movie. They just get rid of the dog. And maybe it's because of that, maybe. Yeah. Like
in the original script, he wasn't around. Yeah, the funny thing is, there's a lot of like racism against cats. I feel like they could have got away with it if it was a cat. Like if that was like a scene, like it wouldn't have been, but like let's say you see a gremlin like slurping up a cat's tail or something, he's like,
yeah.
And you'd be like, oh, they ate the cat. You obviously couldn't have had a scene of like the dog being torn apart and eaten alive and yelping. But,
yes.
Like I'd imagine if they were to do it, it probably would have been like that. Like you just have like a scene of like, I'm imagining like a tail being slurped up like a noodle.
Yeah.
That's how I imagine they'd do it.
Yeah, and also a scene where the Gremlins attacked a McDonald's, eating customers instead of burgers, was cut. And again, they don't really eat humans, do they? They're not really. They're not like interested in like eating humans.
Yeah, they're wasteful.
So yeah, I did see actually there was a Burger King in this town. So, I'm not sure, like, was that product placement or not? I'm not sure, but yeah, it's interesting. In the script, it was a McDonald's, but we see a Burger King in the movie, so yeah, basically the movie, again, could have been darker, and I'm kind of, I don't know if I'm thankful it wasn't, because I think the movie works better with these, ideas not in the movie, but at the same time, I'm kind of like you, if there were more horrific elements, it might have been more interesting to watch.
The one thing I'm like thinking in my head is like the Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors, because like I would say like they're obviously I don't know how they're like rated as things, but obviously like they're appropriate for kids pretty much, like most, like especially like the early ones, and they do have like people dying in them, obviously
the early ones.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like they got a bit more hardcore with some stuff later on, as far as I can tell. But
are you concerned about children watching these?
Yeah, children's morality.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, so the thing is, with it in mind that like nowadays most people are like, oh, The Simpsons, that's like basically appropriate for children, and even the Halloween things, like people do die in that. So
is that the fuck it? Nobody cares about the fucking Simpsons being inappropriate for kids, Michael.
Sorry, I'm just worried that we might have some George Bush Senior fans listening who still think that they're a sign of the moral decline of Western society. So I just wanted to, accommodate them.
Okay, so Lynn and Billy are able to kill the Gremlins, except for Stripe, who escapes to a local YMCA where he jumps into its swimming pool, spawning an army of Gremlins that wreak havoc in Kingston Falls. Many people are injured or outright killed by the Gremlins rampage, including Mrs. Deagle, or Mrs. Desert Eagle. Yeah. That's a really fun set piece, I guess, where she flies out the window. That's great. I love that.
Yeah. See, I was going to say, I like this. I like as soon as she's introduced, I'm like, okay, good. They have a character who's bad. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying about like horrific versus dark. Like this is the kind of movie where like they can, like if I was to expect this movie to be at all like, about killing people, which of course in this case is about killing someone, it should mostly lean into like the bad guys. And obviously in reality, horror movie logic, someone who wouldn't by any reasonable like standard warrant the death penalty, it's completely fine if they're brutally killed because they're kind of a jerk.
That's fun. And the Gremlins being at the bar, that's great. They understood how fun these Gremlins could be, like them all drinking and playing cards and engaging in this debauchery, however you say that word.
I would say debauchery.
Debauchery.
But that sounds posher. So
Yes.
I don't know. You might have to come up with a different way of saying it for your,
For my what?
for your accent.
Oh,
Because when you say, for some reason, for me, when you say debauchery, you sound like how I sound when I say it.
yeah. Well, that makes sense, right? Because we have the same accent.
That's true.
That's
actually,
what I always thought. So yeah, I like how the police also prove to be no help in the situation. Yeah, they're useless cowards, which is good. This movie is woke, honestly.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking to myself, like, because obviously, like, it's a bit of a stereotype of like the law enforcement like doesn't believe it, like especially in like B movies, I guess, it's like the scientists who like know something's going wrong, and the authorities are like, shut up, blah, blah, blah. In this one, I was thinking, like, to be honest, there's not too much stakes here because, as we've already mentioned, these gremlins aren't subtle, so it's not as if like his inability to warn them is going to have too much impact because they're at most 15 minutes away from being forced to confront the fact this is, legit.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, again, the Gremlins doing all the crazy shit around town, I support. Again, it's fun. I wish there was more set pieces, honestly, but the bits that, and again, they just look so good in the bar. They look so realistic. And yeah, it's great. Well, really well done all around with the Gremlins.
Yeah, maybe Marvel should learn a thing or two about how to not use CGI and everything.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, it's just a shame, honestly. The rest of the movie is so bare. Because if it wasn't, this would be quite good.
Yeah. So I think I'm agreeing with you. Like the middle is kind of like the peak, and my instinct not to jump the what's it called, but jump the gun. I feel like it's fair to say it's kind of like it's really exciting with like blah, 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 but then it's kind of like, okay, we need like somewhere else to take this now, which they didn't really deliver on.
Yeah. So Billy rescues his girlfriend Kate. Well, she's not his girlfriend then, is she? Or whatever. She reveals to Billy that when she was 9, okay, this is an interesting story she tells Billy, which is, I'm kind of grateful for it because it is a character moment, but it's just quite unusual. So she reveals to Billy that when she was 9, her father went missing on Christmas Eve and did not come home. Several days later, he was found dead in their chimney while dressed as Santa Claus. He had accidentally slipped and broken his neck, killing him instantly. While climbing down the chimney, Kate confesses this is how she lost her Christmas spirit. What do you think of that story, Michael?
Yeah, so I thought this was dumb. Or like, I don't know. It's like, so my immediate feeling was one of like, who cares?
Wow.
It feels unnecessary. And also I feel like I actually wrote like a specific note about it. I wrote it's unnecessarily expositive, and I think what I meant by that is like it's the fact the movie kind of has to stop for this to be revealed. And it's kind of like, I don't know, like I feel like if you're going to have some kind of weird backstory, then it should be, let's say, motivated by something that's sort of happening in the script where it's like you have a moment where it's like, oh, there needs to be this like quiet moment. But I don't know, yeah, for me, I guess to answer your question in a word, or let's say a quick sentence, yeah, it just seemed like it didn't really add very much to me. And it would have been like, okay, if there was some bigger thing, but then I don't really know about that because I'm like, well, what would that bigger thing be? Where it's like there's a reason to find out this woman's dad died while pretending to be Santa Claus.
Well, I'll tell you what the reason is. But
okay,
the thing is, in terms of like the character, does she get her Christmas spirit back?
Well, I would say she doesn't.
Yeah, I'd agree. So
yes.
I'll tell you why this, I guess, speech was added into the movie. But in terms of, does it actually work for the character? Well, in terms of an arc, I lost my dad at Christmas. That's why I'm depressed. And honestly, this Christmas is just as bad with all of my friends and the town that I live in being ravaged by these gremlins. But yeah, I don't. That's the thing. I don't think she'd come away from this Christmas being like, oh, I like Christmas now. So it's kind of hard to have an arc where she likes Christmas again. So obviously, you can't really conclude this character arc, and it's not going to work. But there's the other reason why it was added in was it was a symbolic reason, okay? Because studio executives, by the way, insisted upon its removal because they felt it was too ambiguous as to whether it was supposed to be funny or sad. But the director Dante refused to take the scene out, saying it represented the film as a whole, which had a combination of horrific and comedic elements.
Can I be honest? I don't think that I thought that. I mean, even while I like laughed at it as I recounted it, I don't think the way it's presented in the movie has any sense of it being even remotely comedic.
Yeah, it doesn't seem comedic, does it? Yeah.
Yeah, which if anything, I'd say it's almost the opposite, that it clashes tonally with the rest of the movie because it's just unambiguously, dark and depressing.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like, it is kind of depressing.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
there's no resolution to this character's arc.
And also, my other beef, like I say, I don't really go for this tonally confused making your horror movies about Christmas malarkey. So the fact that this obviously, if it was going to introduce anything, it would have to be some kind of arc around Christmas, which doesn't really work anyway. It would just make the movie like, I'd be like, well, it's still not a Christmas movie, so shut up.
Yeah. So Billy and Kate discover that the Gremlins are watching Snow White in the local theatre. Is there a thematic reason why they're watching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? Is it because they're small? Is that...
Yeah, I was trying to, you know what, I know usually I just watch a movie passively with my mouth open and drooling, but I was also, when I was watching it, trying to think, like, why is it this movie in particular? Especially because I think, like, what's like the situation with Disney? Because this is Warner Brothers, and like nowadays with like Marvel vs. DC, even though I know that wasn't a thing here at all, so I'm being completely anachronistic. But I always imagine Warner Brothers and Disney as kind of like enemies. Well, I guess also there's like Mickey Mouse vs. Bugs Bunny. So I'm like, how did this Warner Brothers property, like, why did they want to show a Disney thing? Like, how did they come to be able to do that? And as such, why was the reason they really wanted it to be Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? And I can't really think of a reason, apart from you could say the dwarves are, I guess, kind of helpful, maybe?
Yeah.
Whereas obviously these are the opposite. But
yeah, maybe that's the reason. So obviously Billy and Kate then set off a gas explosion, killing all the Gremlins except for Stripe. Yeah, just not very inventive. That's what I find, because I thought after Kate found out, she took a bunch of photos in the bar, which killed them, and she lit a match on fire. They'd use these. Fire and light to kill them, but no, just an explosion will do, which would kill anything. So
I
go on.
I was thinking it's weird because like literally a projector like puts out some light. So I was like thinking to myself, like, why don't they, like, one of the things I was thinking is like they could like splice in, I don't know, like shit, I don't know, like I'm thinking like somehow like some film reel that features like sunlight in it. So like I guess like if I was gonna try and come up with something, it would be like maybe earlier on someone's watching like a home movie or something, and the home movie has like a scene of like it's in a sunny beach or something, and like maybe it's like the woman whose dad dies, and maybe it's like just that she's sad about her dad dying, so she's watching like a home movie with her dad, and dad's like, oh, look at the sun, and you're like, okay, whatever,
what if they spliced in Lawrence of Arabia, because that has a lot of bright, the sun, the desert,
Yeah, some kind of like somehow they splice in something that has the sun in it, and just obviously it's not really the sun, but because it's bright, and like that tricks them.
Yeah,
why not?
That match cut, like the match goes out and then the sun rises. That cut from Lawrence of Arabia.
I don't remember it, to be honest.
It's like one of the most famous cuts in cinema, but okay,
cool.
And I know you've seen the movie, so
I have. Yeah. Lawrence of Arabia, match cut.
Yep, you'll see what I'm talking about, and you'll be
the greatest. It's called The Greatest Cut of All.
Yes,
interesting.
yes.
But I'm getting an advert for vitamins. Who definitely
you haven't heard of it.
I haven't heard of it. I've seen it, but I haven't heard of it.
Well, exactly.
Okay, so he's doing a little match thing. Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, you've seen this.
Yeah. It's so long ago though.
Yeah.
Well, I don't remember when we reviewed it.
Oh, okay. So
was it 2022?
Let us now get on to the ending. So the trio follows Stripe into the department store, where he attempts to use a fountain to spawn more gremlins. Gizmo opens a nearby skylight, exposing Stripe to the sunlight and killing him. Yeah, I just put in my notes. This goes on for far too long.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm with you on that. And also, I have like another complaint. I don't like the idea that the gremlins are actively trying to spawn more gremlins. The reason I don't like that is because if that's what they're trying to do, that should be insanely easy for them. So I feel like giving them like the conscious goal of making more gremlins, it just doesn't work, because if that is their goal,
that's what fucking Stripe does when he goes into the YMCA building.
Yeah, but I'm just saying why doesn't he just get all of his like gremlins? Like he could just do that like all the time.
Maybe
he could just make so many gremlins.
He's got enough. He's got like 50.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, maybe he's concerned about overpopulation.
Yeah, as we all should be.
Yeah, and he's Chinese, so that makes sense. But yeah. So, and I agree with you. Like, so this kind of end of the movie, after like the theater was blown up, I was thinking to myself, I don't know. I'm done now. I can tap out. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, but obviously we gotta find Stripe, and it takes like 10 minutes to kill him. Like if you cut that in half, that would have been so much better. But yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where I know it took a while, but I couldn't for the life of me tell you how they managed to stretch it out that much.
Well, yeah, he just like almost kills Billy and injures Billy, and if you just make it faster paced, and you could have made that better. So Mr. Wing. So obviously Billy saves the day. Fucking Stripe dies, and we're all happy. And then Mr. Wing comes back to the Peltzer home to collect Gizmo. He scolds the family for their negligence and criticizes Western society for its carelessness with nature.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, this movie really didn't seem to concern itself with nature at all. So it's a weird thing to tack on, but don't worry, Mr. Wing. Billy, of course, is a boomer, and the boomers will look after the environment. Don't worry, Mr. Wing.
Yeah, this is good. Yeah. So I'm with you on this. Like, I was like so confused about like in general. We also had like an issue with the fact there was no solution to their money issues either. Like, unless did like Blinken miss something? Like he's a struggling inventor.
Well, you actually did miss something.
Oh, what
surprise. So what does the dad hand Mr. Wing as he's leaving?
Oh, an ash thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the ashtray thing, and the guy's like, some guy tried to sell me an ashtray thing.
So it's successful.
It is successful. Okay, yeah. So I guess, I suppose maybe I wanted like someone to explicitly say, and you've got a big dump truck of money, but I suppose it's fine that there's the implication that it will be better in the future. Anyway, so with that said, the other thing, but about the final message about nature, like maybe they got confused. They thought it was Native American. They were like, wait, what race did we have this guy be? Because like the Chinese people don't give a shit about nature either. So like they can't complain about that. Because like I guess it's like supposed to be like some kind of mystic ancient wisdom thing, like, oh, you need to understand nature and stuff like that. But it just doesn't work. Like it's not that's not a theme of this movie.
Yeah, no, I agree. It seems tacked on. But yeah, Gizmo, of course, having bonded with Billy, bids him goodbye. A touched Wing then concedes that Billy may be ready to one day own Gizmo. Until then, Gizmo will be waiting. And yeah, it's a nice ending and sets up a sequel, of course, which happens I think 5 years later or something.
Yeah, you know what? Like I've actually seen the sequel.
Is it good?
You know what? I would say it's about as good as this.
Well, that doesn't sound promising, does it?
So yeah, but I mean, like on the one hand, I'm with you that it doesn't sound promising. On the other hand, it's kind of impressive because I was like thinking, surely like a sequel to Gremlins, like surely it's going to be crap. So it's kind of like the fact that it just managed to maintain. It is different, like that's the thing. So I would say it's possible that. It's possible you might actually enjoy it more. For me, like I would say, I'm not actually sure which one I enjoy more. But like there's more stuff going on.
Okay, well, so I'll conclude now with this movie. And again, one of the reasons why I didn't enjoy it is because again, it seems kind of bare, slow paced, not a lot happening. I was quite bored watching this, which I didn't really expect. And I don't really get bored watching movies, but I was bored watching this. So yeah, that's a big failure really for this movie when it's meant to be exciting and fun. And there are some like exciting and fun moments, but again, it's like all or nothing with the Gremlins. You get these great Gremlin scenes, and then the rest is just pathetic, honestly. And yeah, I think it's like a first draft, honestly, or maybe a second draft at best of a movie. And you need to beef the script up a bit with more interesting character arcs, perhaps. Again, you have this Billy kid. He's got hopes and dreams about being I'm sure he, at the end of the movie, I was sure he was gonna become like a cartoonist, or have an opportunity for him in that field. That doesn't happen. I guess he gets a girl. He gets his girlfriend at the end of the movie. That's one of the tropes which stays in. But yeah, it's just kind of very, very empty apart from the Gremlins. So therefore, Michael, I can only give this. I think I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. Honestly, which is lower than I honestly thought. But yeah, I just don't think it's that good. So 4 out of 10 for me. What about you?
Yeah, I don't find this movie as... I didn't find this movie as boring as you in terms of a visceral watch of it. I was fine with the beginning and a little bit disappointed with some aspects of the middle, and I think it could have been, a bit more intense, but I was like, okay, it's fun. Yeah, for me, like, I would agree with you, but like, I was only kind of a little bit disappointed with the last 15 minutes, which is not a great amount of stuff to be disappointed with, but I still found the movie overall reasonably fun. I said that I was just teetering over the edge of liking it. So it just went above average, which obviously places it above a 4. I was thinking about giving it a high 5. I'm actually going to just further separate myself from you and saying just like the kind of 80s charm of it for me, I'm going to give it a very, very, very low 6. I'm going to just put it over there. But yeah, I wouldn't go lower than a high 5 because I do think it was for me, it just had a little bit of charm and fun and goofiness, and that kind of, I guess I'd say that held me over for like the final 15 minutes. Like for me, the final 15 minutes was like, ugh, I was more like, oh, this isn't as fun, but I've had a decent amount of fun up until this point.
The charm regarding the Gremlins, at least, is the reason why it has a 4 and isn't like a 2 out of 10. Honestly, it's really quite a lot worse than I would have suspected. So, that's our first Spooktober movie done and dusted. What are we reviewing next for Spooktober, Michael?
Well, I'm going to get so bored because it's such a tonally similar movie. It is actually a movie that's gratifyingly shorter, and we're looking at the Blair Witch Project.
Yes, so join us in a week or so. It's time for the Blair Witch Project. Quite a different movie to Gremlins, as I think you alluded to. And that's the second part of our Spooktober. Things are getting spookier all the time as we head to Halloween. So join us for that next time. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
Luke. Thanks for listening to our Gremlins review, and goodbye.
Goodbye.